Okay, it's Nick from the Talk and Power podcast, and I'm here with co-host Todd Brinkworth. We're about to give you the Rosco McGlashan interview. We really appreciated Rosco's time in coming on the podcast and his offside of Barry. So this is part one of the interview, so tune in, and thanks for joining us, and thank you to Rosco and his wife Cheryl for their time. Okay, welcome to a very special episode of the Talk and Power podcast. We are recording live here from the garage of Rosco McGlashan, the holder of the Australian land speed record and going for the world speed record very shortly. I'm also here with his offsider Barry and of course our co-host Todd Brinkworth. Todd, thanks for organising all this. And Rosco, thank you very much. And Barry, thanks for your time as well.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Our pleasure.
Hey, look, Rosco, before we get stuck too deep into all of this, the vehicle that's behind us, this is the 5R. This is the, I guess you would call it the fifth incarnation of your attempt at a land speed record.
That's her, yes.
Yep. No worries. Look, I mean, we'll touch on that a little bit later on. We'll get really stuck into that. But just for those of you watching the video, I hope you're watching the video, because if you're listening to the podcast, we're doing this as a vlog, as Todd calls it. Is that right, Todd?
Yeah, that's the buzzword.
Buzzword. So, yeah, look, I mean, you can catch us on YouTube and Facebook if you're listening to us through the radio on 88.5 FM or through our podcast channels. Make sure you tune in, because this vehicle that's behind us is the world's fastest, well, will be the world's fastest. It'll hold the land speed record, and you were telling us before, it's the world's most powerful car, 200,000 horsepower.
200,000 horsepower, 62,000 pound of thrust, yes.
We've interviewed many people in this podcast. We had John Zappia, and he was pretty impressed with his 3,000 horsepower of his Monaro. But I mean, I'll tell you what, I think you've got him quarter there. All right, look, let's get stuck straight into it. Rosco, you started out with a passion for going for the land speed record. Tell us a little bit. Let's get us started in the rocket-powered car that you actually did 253 mile an hour with.
Rocket go-kart, yeah, that was I got interested in rockets a very long time ago, back in the 70s, and they were the fastest things down a quarter mile in drag racing. They actually still are. And anyway, but I got very excited with hydrogen peroxide rockets, and wanted to build myself a motorcycle with two rocket engines on there, so I did my very best to put this thing together, and it didn't quite pan out as good as I'd hoped. Couldn't get it performing properly, and so I contacted a guy in the States, in California, who's Fearless Fred Goski, who's a really fast rocket funny car guy, and went over and spent some time with Fred, and learned a hell of a lot about it, and and where I was going wrong, and came back to Australia after running the go-kart. He had the go-kart in his shed, and took a lot of persuading, a lot of tequila to get him to get the thing down out of the shed, but we rented out to a place called Calico Waco in back of California, and ran really fast, 253 mile an hour, and did a 5.9 second pass. And anyway, we took the rocket gear off this cart, brought it back to Australia, and the plan was to put it in the bike. And basically, when I got it back with all the rocket gear, Andra banned using rocket-powered vehicles on a drag strip, which is really sad. And I think the thing that hurt most about that was Dennis Sirimus was the man who banned it. He was the boss of Andra, and he was a very good friend of mine.
Yeah, okay, yep. Well, tell us then a little bit about the Crazy Horse bike as well, while we're at it.
Yeah, Crazy Horse. Well, Crazy Horse actually came before the rocket bike. That was back in the early 70s, and we did a lot of stuff with that. And some very good friends of mine in Brisbane, and put it all together, and had a Chevy 350. Well, had a couple of engines, but 350 Chev engine. With all the high kicker pistons, all the gear in it, and very, very powerful engine in it. And this thing had no clutch, so you'd set the thing up on a stand, fire the engine up, and then rocket off the stand and straight away you'd stage it as far as you could in the right-hand lane, and do a big power slide towards Yarmouth on the other side, come back in the right-hand lane through the centre of the right-hand lane again, 170 mile an hour, and I think the best it did was a 9.1, but as I've often said to people, if it ran straight in a straight line, it would have run a 5-second run.
Yeah.
It did half a mile getting there, so but very impressive.
No. Rosco, look, let's get stuck into then, I guess, my first recollection of yourself. I'm 44 years old, so I go back a little way as well, but my first recollection of yourself was Aussie Invader #1, and I remember watching a TV show, you may recall it, because they would have interviewed you. It was I think it's when Channel 10 was in their first incarnation in Perth, and it was called Just for the Record, and they did a special episode on yourself, because you had Aussie Invader #1 at the time, and you had plans. This is going back into the 80s now. We're talking here. You had plans back then to have an attempt at the world speed record. So can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, Aussie Invader #1? I know that was a jet car and mainly for exhibition drag racing, but can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, Aussie Invader 1 came about. I was on my way, the same trip I talked about, going across to America to catch up with fearless Fred Goski. I was on my way there, and I stopped in Sydney on the way across, and I caught up with my Aussie hero, my Aussie legend, Ken Warby, MBE, the fastest man on water in the world, and we sat down, had a couple of beers, and and a bit of a talk, and he said, what are you doing, why are you going to America? And I said, well, I'm going to come back with some rocket technology to initially get a bike going, a motorcycle going, and I want to have the fastest motorcycle in the world. And I said, then I want to move on to a rocket-powered funny car. And he said to me, well, why would you want to do that? I said, because I want to be the fastest guy that's ever gone down the drag strip. And he said, why? And I said, well, mate, that's what it's all about. It's going fast. He said, no, it's not. He said, drag racing is not about being the fastest. He said, the people that want to go fastest in drag racing, and no detrimental to people we love like John Zapier and people like that, they're absolute legends. But what Ken said, the people that pay money to go drag racing, and the mums and dads, and what they want to see is a show. I said, Ken,
definitely.
No. I said, you're wrong, mate. People go there to see and watch something really, really fast. And anyway, the bottom line is he talked me into helping him build a couple of jet dragsters. So I went to Chicago and worked with a guy called Romeo Palomides building Aussie Invader 1, and we campaigned that for a while, and the car two cars belonged to Ken, and I ended up owning one of the cars after a few years, Ken owning them. And but I always recall the slowest passes I ever made in that car was when the windows would fall out of the timing tower building at the drag strips, all the car alarms would go off, everything would be on fire, people would be running out putting fires out from the car running. The car would come back down the return lane, and people would come out the bleachers in the hundreds and say, mate, that was unbelievable. And I'm not talking 2 or 3 people, I'm talking hundreds of people coming out, patting you on the back and whatever, and saying, mate, can you get out of the way, we're trying to get back to the pits. And anyway, I'd say to everyone, well, how fast it run? No one knew. And the bottom line is no one cared.
Yeah.
We just put on a hell of a show, and yeah, that's. So Ken was right, as I say, the people that pay to go to drag racing don't really care how fast. It's a show they want to see.
Look, I can certainly vouch for that, actually, because I'll tell you a little story. My father-in-law, my late father-in-law, he was off the boat, Italian, and he used to take my wife, she was only a little girl at the time, to the drag to see your car. And that was and he had no inclination in drag racing whatsoever. He didn't know the first thing about drag racing, but he would enjoy going just to the drags to see the jet cars, and yours in particular, Aussie Invader 1. So, you know, I can certainly vouch for the fact that the drag racing, it was a lot about the show as well, and jet cars certainly, still to this very day, I think they pull some of the biggest crowds down at the Motorplex these days. Yeah. Well, moving on from Aussie Invader 1, I do distinctly remember in the early 90s you started campaigning Aussie Invader #2. Now, I've got a prop here, actually, if I may. I don't know if you can get that, Dave, but do you recall that?
No, I can't.
So this is going back, I can't remember where you actually signed that, but that's...
Did you pay for that?
I hope so. So, tell us a little bit how Aussie Invader #2 got started then.
Well, to build a land speed car, and you know, this is fond memories. Some of my heroes, Craig Breedlove, Art Arfons, guys like that. We decided, well, I wanted from age 12 to build a land speed car and set a world record, and I quit school at 12 to do this, but when it actually came time to build the car, which is about 90, I don't know when we started, my good wife would know, but probably about 92 or something. But so bottom line was, it was absolute classic. I was touring at the time with Ken Warby again. As I say, we toured all over the place with jet funny cars and stuff, and later on, and every time we'd stop somewhere, I'd say to Ken, I'd pull a bit of paper out of my top pocket and say, listen, I'm going to do this with a land speed car, I'm going to do this, going to do that. Anyway, after about 6 months, that wore a bit thin. He said, mate, for Christ's sake, he said, if you're going to build this thing, build it. And I said, well, Ken, I don't have any money. Don't have any money to even start it. And he said, well, just start, make a start on it. I said, well, I don't even know where to start. Anyway, I come back to Perth, and Ken went back to Cincinnati, and where he lives. And anyway, I bought 4 lengths of 1.5-inch chrome molly tube, put them on the floor of this shop here, and I thought, gee, how can I inspire myself to make it look sort of half like a car? So I got some wooden slats, put them up, put the frame rails where they were going to go, got a couple of race wheels and put them on the 4 corners, cut the legs off a plastic seat, put them where I was going to sit, and drew a picture on the ground where the rocket motor was going to go in the fuel tanks. Anyway, someone in the media heard about the guy in Mullaloo building a land speed car. So 4 TV stations come out here all at once, and they used to sort of heckle each other, whether something come up. So we had 4 TV stations here, and anyway, they come in here and they said, oh, we come to see the car, and they all got out and filmed it, and I said, well, there it is there. And you see the looks on their faces, and I thought, whatever. And anyway, I still laugh about it, but one of the last guys to leave, put his bag in the back of his truck, and anyway, I didn't see me. I walked up behind him, and he said to him, mate, that guy's going to be the greatest wanker on earth. Anyway, but no, we had there were a million stories, but yeah, we done really, really good. But I think probably the most memorable thing was me ringing this Art Arfons, who's an absolute legend. He's not with us anymore, but ringing Art up in Akron, Ohio, and I said, Art, I'm building a land speed car over in Australia, and I'm trying to get my hands desperately on a Mirage engine, which we're working hard at getting, but can you tell me, mate? I said, I don't know where to start with the measurements and stuff like that. Can you tell me, how did your Green Monster number 7, which got a similar size engine, got a J79 engine in it, same size as the Mirage, how did it end up with 22 foot in length and 8 foot 6 wide with a back track? And he said, that's the size of the tray of my truck. So I thought, well, that's a good starting point. So
there you go.
Yeah.
So that was number 2. So Barry, tell us a bit. Where did you come into it? We probably glossed it. We may have missed, but where did you come into this?
I'm a relative newcomer to this. I retired, and one thing or another happened, and I found myself with plenty of time on my hands. And this was a few years ago, just after Rosco had a run-in with the tax department. And I thought this guy could do with a hand. So I come down here one day and I said, I want to give you a hand, and I've got a few skills, I think, and I'm prepared to travel anywhere in the world to sort this thing out. Yep. And my thing would be electronics. Don't scare me at all. Yep. So when I looked at this thing, I thought something a bit strange going on here. Rosco must have had a roll of red wire. Every wire was red up in the little hatch up there. And he said, it doesn't make any difference anyway because I'm colourblind. So I set to and we sorted out the electrics and put some relays in place of switches and things.
Okay.
And so,
fair enough.
But and as I say, we've travelled together to New Zealand, the US, Copenhagen, Dubai, places like that. So
all in the interest of rocket stuff.
Oh yeah. It's all business, of course.
Yeah. No, fair enough. So Rosco, just getting back to number 2, then there was a change in direction, wasn't it? Because you've gone jet engine there with number 2 and number 3. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, 2 and 3.
Yeah. So without jumping too far ahead, what made you change to rocket for this one here?
Well, the thing about the land speed record, throughout the history of the land speed record, people have built a car to do a certain speed. So what's happened to us and happened to many people before us is that they say, right, for example, the world land speed record might have been 500 mile an hour. So someone says, all right, well, we're going to build a car that's going to go 550 mile an hour. So they spend 10 years, a lot of money, because that's usually the period it takes to build one of these cars. They spend around 10 years building a car, put a lot of money into it. When they're ready to go out and go there 550, someone's gone out and gone 580. The car's redundant. It's happened to us. I've got signs up here. 1100, that was our goal with the Aussie 2 car. And then Rotten Poms went out and went, when we're going for that one, they went out and went 1227. So
that's SSC you're referring to? Yep.
So bottom line was we said we're going to build the world's most powerful car. Hopefully it's got too much power. Hopefully it's got too much power, and but that's something we don't know. We've got to punch through the sound barrier, go 1.4 Mach, and hopefully that hopefully our performance predictions are on the light side, that we're going to make have a heap of power and and get those. So, but no one's going to pip us at the post, I can tell you that.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So can you tell us a little bit about number 3 then? While we've finished up with number 2, then number 3 as well. How much from the outside it looked significantly different to number 2, but how much was reinvented, or how much of number 2 hung over into number 3?
Well, really, and the long and short of it is our lots. Obviously, we crashed Aussie 2, and that's a pretty amazing crash. We tramlined. We couldn't pull the car out of a tram line. It got caught in, and by the front wheels punching through the salt. Back track was wider, dropped into that track, and we had the timing gear lined up probably 2 mile away. Everything was shut off, and I still reckon we hit the timing gear at over 600 mile an hour.
Yeah.
But hell of a bang. I thought, oh shit, I couldn't, crikey, I couldn't, I couldn't figure if I was still alive. It's just, the shock was that. Anyway, got my faculties back together, climbed out the car, and I expected to see the car destroyed. Walked around the front and had a bit of a ding in the front. It's amazing. There's a bit of rod hanging up there, a bit of 3/4 rod, steel rod that was on there.
That rod there, yeah, okay.
That is the exact profile of the front of the car, like it got drop forwards. And it's actually on our website. If you look at our website with the encounters with speed, you actually see it's hits that, and then flicks it over the top of the car, destroyed the engine, killed the car. But obviously, there's a lot of stuff on Aussie 2 that we could take off and put into Aussie 3, which is a lot slicker and a bit more powerful.
Yeah. So Aussie 3 was we're talking 96, 97 now, aren't we? We're
96.
Yeah. So that one, Aussie 3, that was 638 mile an hour, is that correct?
We peaked at 638 mile an hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you weren't able to make the return run.
Yeah. Well, even with the previous car, we it's an amazing thing, let me go back a stage. Lake Edna, where we ran, we're the only team, I might stand corrected here, but the only team I've ever heard of that set a land speed record on solid wheels on salt. And the thing about the salt is when it's in good nick, it's like this concrete.
Yep.
So people don't appreciate, but the wheels have got to spin up, got to stay in sync with the chassis. So there's no point having a car that you hit the throttle, the car bolts and the chassis bolts off a million mile an hour, but the wheels can't keep up because you're fighting 4 gyros, and that's what happens on the salt. So anyway, but that's
okay. Yep. Now number 4 was whatever happened to number 4. That was after, sort of in the 2000s, early 2000s.
Yeah, well, that was a dragster.
Yep.
That was a dragster that we built here in the home shop here, and that's actually done the rounds around the world. It's been everywhere. I sold it to a guy on the Gold Coast. He took it to Asia, Vietnam, and it now went to Brazil, I believe, and then it's back here in Perth at Gidgegannup. A guy in Gidgegannup, Ian Woods, bought it.
All right.
And Ian's a legend. He's starting to run the car, and they're really good. So it's down the Motorplex now, but he calls it Banshee. Banshee. So
okay. Well, there you go. They didn't put the two together. Sorry, I didn't realise that. All right. Well, look, Rosco, before we get onto the 5R, I know, Todd, do you have any questions down there? I know he's been looking
Not
at me.
at the moment.
Surely.
I'm actually just thinking, no, we're covering it pretty well. So,
okay.
no, we're all good, but yeah, we're going to take a
Give
quick...
me the deafs there down there.
No.
Okay.
Well,
That's him thinking.
yeah, probably take a quick break and, get on to the hard questions in a minute. What do you reckon?
All right, we'll take a short break here and we'll come back right after this. Okay, so that's the end of part 1. Be sure to tune in. We'll be bringing you part 2 shortly of the Rosco McGlashan interview.